3 months ago, I noticed something strange. A Singapore-based hedge fund manager I'd been following on LinkedIn suddenly changed his location to Manila. Then another one. Then 5 more. These weren't just relocations. These were calculated moves by people who manage billions of dollars. And they were all going to the same place, the Philippines. So I did what any curious person would do. I bought a plane ticket, packed my bags, and spent the last 8 weeks following the money trail across Manila, Cebu, and Clark. What I discovered will fundamentally change how you see Southeast Asia's economic future. Because while the world obsesses over Vietnam and Thailand, something far bigger is happening in the Philippines. And the global elite don't want you to know about it yet. Let me paint you a picture. It's early morning in Bonifacio Global City, Manila's financial district. I'm sitting in a cafe watching an endless stream of black SUVs pull up to a nondescript office building. The logo on the building? BlackRock. Yes, that BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager with over $10 trillion under management. But here's what made my jaw drop. This wasn't just a small satellite office. This was a massive operation, spanning 3 floors, with hundreds of employees. And they weren't the only ones. Across the street, JP Morgan. 2 blocks down, Goldman Sachs. The next street over, HSBC expanded operations. I started asking questions. Why here? Why now? Why the Philippines? The answers I got were vague at first. Strategic positioning, market opportunities, talent pool. But these are the same corporate buzzwords you hear everywhere. I knew there was something deeper, something these investors weren't saying out loud. So I kept digging. I managed to get a coffee meeting with a Deutsche Bank executive who'd just moved his entire family from Hong Kong to Manila. Let's call him Marcus. After 2 espressos and some careful conversation, Marcus leaned in and said something that changed everything. "We're not investing in the Philippines of today," he whispered. "We're investing in the Philippines of 2035. And if you understood what's actually happening here, you'd be doing the same thing." That conversation sent me down a rabbit hole that consumed the next 2 months of my life. And what I found was a story that starts in the most unlikely place, with a demographic time bomb that's about to reshape the entire global economy. Here's what nobody's talking about. While China's population is aging rapidly and Japan is shrinking, the Philippines has something extraordinary happening. The median age in the country is 25 years old. Let that sink in. 25. In comparison, China's median age is 39. Japan's is 49. The United States is 38. But it's not just about age. It's about what these young Filipinos are doing. I visited 5 universities across Metro Manila, and every single computer science department had a waiting list. Students aren't just learning basic coding. They're mastering artificial intelligence, blockchain development, advanced data analytics. And here's the kicker. They're doing it at a fraction of the cost of universities in the West, but with the same hunger and ambition you'd find in Silicon Valley. I met a 22-year-old named Miguel who's working on a fintech startup that's already processing millions in transactions. His entire team is Filipino. His investors? A mix of Japanese venture capital and American tech money. When I asked him why he didn't move to Singapore or San Francisco, he looked at me like I was crazy. "Why would I leave?" he said. "Everything I need is being built right here, right now." And that's when it clicked. This isn't about cheap labor anymore. This is about a massive, educated, English-speaking workforce that's about to hit its economic prime all at the same time. But the demographic story is just the first piece of the puzzle. The second piece is something that's happening in boardrooms from Tokyo to Texas, and it's completely reshaping global manufacturing. You've probably heard about companies leaving China. What you haven't heard is where a lot of that money is actually going. I spent a week in Clark, a former U.S. Air Force base that's now become a massive industrial zone. The scale of construction there is mind-blowing. Japanese electronics manufacturers, Korean semiconductor companies, American aerospace contractors, they're all building facilities that span hundreds of acres. I walked through a factory that makes components for electric vehicles. The manager, a woman who'd worked in automotive for 20 years across 3 continents, told me something fascinating. The Philippines has the highest English proficiency in Asia, higher than Singapore, higher than Hong Kong. When you're coordinating a global supply chain, when you're working with German engineers and American designers and Japanese quality controllers, that linguistic advantage isn't just convenient. It's worth billions of dollars in efficiency. But here's what really shocked me. These aren't just assembly plants. These are research and development hubs. I saw Filipino engineers designing next-generation battery systems. I saw teams developing proprietary manufacturing processes. This is high-value work, the kind that creates lasting wealth. And the investors know it. I got my hands on an internal memo from a major investment bank that literally used the phrase, "the next Asian tiger." Not might be, not could be, will be. Now, my mom saw me working on this video last week and said, "You're never going to hit 5,000 subscribers talking about economics." She thinks I should stick to viral trends and dance challenges. But here's the thing. If you believe this story matters, if you think understanding where the global economy is heading actually gives you an edge in life, then smash that subscribe button right now. Prove her wrong. Let's get to 5,000 subscribers and show her that people actually care about real, game-changing information. Plus, I've got 3 more videos coming that connect directly to this story, and you won't want to miss them. Alright, back to the story. Because the infrastructure play is where things get really interesting. I took a 5-hour drive from Manila to the north, through provinces most foreigners have never heard of. And everywhere I looked, construction. Not small projects, massive infrastructure. 8-lane highways cutting through mountains. High-speed rail corridors. Deep water ports that can handle the largest container ships in the world. Who's funding this? Chinese state-owned enterprises, Japanese development banks, Korean construction giants, American infrastructure funds. Billions upon billions of dollars pouring into concrete and steel. And here's what's crucial. This infrastructure isn't being built randomly. Every highway connects to an industrial zone. Every port links to a manufacturing hub. Every rail line serves a logistics corridor. I met with a logistics consultant who works with Fortune 500 companies. She pulled up a map on her laptop and showed me something incredible. Look at the Philippines location, she said, tracing her finger across the screen. You're at the center of the fastest growing consumer markets in human history. 4 hours to southern China, 3 hours to Vietnam, 5 hours to Indonesia. You're the hub connecting 3 billion consumers. And unlike other Southeast Asian countries, the Philippines is an archipelago. That means multiple deep water ports, natural protection from certain geopolitical tensions, and geographic diversity that spreads risk. For a global investor thinking about the next 20 years, these aren't small considerations. They're fundamental strategic advantages. But infrastructure and location are just the physical pieces. The real transformation is happening in something most people never think about, the financial system itself. I spent an afternoon in Manila's financial district talking to bankers, venture capitalists, and fintech founders. What I learned was staggering. The Philippines is undergoing a financial revolution. Mobile banking penetration has exploded. Digital payment systems are everywhere, from street food vendors to luxury malls. But more importantly, the regulatory environment is evolving to support innovation while maintaining stability. I interviewed the head of a venture capital firm that's raised hundreds of millions specifically to invest in Filipino startups. He told me that the return on investment they're seeing is comparable to early-stage Silicon Valley, but with far less competition and much more room to grow. Everyone's looking at Indonesia because it's bigger, he said. But the Philippines has better infrastructure, better English, better legal systems. Smart money knows the difference. And it's not just fintech. I visited biotech startups developing breakthrough pharmaceuticals, clean energy companies building solar farms across the islands, agricultural technology firms revolutionizing how rice and tropical fruits are grown and distributed. The diversity of innovation was stunning. Here's what connects all of this: the Filipino diaspora. There are over 10 million Filipinos working abroad, sending home tens of billions of dollars every year. But something new is happening. They're not just sending remittances anymore. They're investing. They're bringing expertise. They're returning home with Silicon Valley experience, London finance knowledge, Dubai construction skills. I met a former Google engineer who left a 6-figure salary to build an AI company in Cebu. I met a former Goldman Sachs trader who's now running a private equity fund in Manila. I met a former Dubai construction executive who's developing smart city projects across Luzon. The brain drain is reversing, and it's bringing global expertise to local opportunities. And the global investors are paying attention. I got access to investment flow data that's not public yet. In the last 18, and the global investors are paying attention. I got access to investment flow data that's not public yet. In the last 18 months, foreign direct investment into the Philippines has increased by staggering amounts, and it's accelerating. But here's what's different from previous investment waves. This money is patient capital. These aren't short-term speculators looking for quick returns. These are sovereign wealth funds, pension funds, and institutional investors making 20 to 30-year bets. I found documents from a Norwegian pension fund that's investing hundreds of millions into Philippine renewable months. Foreign direct investment into the Philippines has increased by staggering amounts, and it's accelerating. But here's what's different from previous investment waves. This money is patient capital. These aren't short-term speculators looking for quick returns. These are sovereign wealth funds, pension funds, and institutional investors making 20 to 30-year bets. I found documents from a Norwegian pension fund that's investing hundreds of millions into Philippine renewable energy, a Canadian infrastructure fund that's committing billions to toll roads and airports, A Japanese conglomerate that's building an entire smart city from scratch. These aren't experiments. These are massive, strategic, long-term commitments. And then there's the geopolitical angle that nobody wants to talk about openly, but everyone's thinking about. I sat down with a political risk analyst who advises major corporations on Southeast Asian investments. She was blunt. The Philippines is the only country in Southeast Asia with a formal military alliance with the United States, while also maintaining economic ties with China and strong relationships with Japan and Korea. That kind of balancing act creates stability, and investors crave stability. The Philippines isn't choosing sides in the great power competition. It's benefiting from all sides. American military presence provides security. Chinese infrastructure investment provides development capital. Japanese manufacturing partnerships provide technology transfer. Korean cultural influence drives consumer growth. It's a geopolitical sweet spot that's incredibly rare. But with all this money flowing in, I had to ask the critical question, what could go wrong? Because nothing is guaranteed, and the Philippines faces real challenges. I talked to economists, business leaders, and everyday Filipinos about the risks. Corruption came up repeatedly, bureaucratic inefficiency, infrastructure gaps that still exist. Natural disasters, typhoons, and earthquakes are real threats. Political instability has been a historical problem. But here's what I noticed. Every single investor I spoke with was aware of these challenges. These aren't naive optimists. These are hardened professionals who've invested in emerging markets for decades. And they're still putting their money down. Why? Because they've done something most people haven't. They've compared the Philippines not to developed countries, but to other emerging markets. And in that comparison, the Philippines looks exceptional. Better rule of law than many neighbors. Stronger democratic institutions. More transparent financial systems. A more educated workforce. Better English. Deeper cultural ties to the West. One investor put it perfectly. I'm not investing in a perfect country. I'm investing in a country with the right combination of factors at the right time. And right now, that's the Philippines. I spent my last week in the Philippines driving through the countryside, talking to farmers, small business owners, and young people planning their futures. And what struck me wasn't just the optimism. Optimism is cheap and everywhere. What struck me was the competence. The plans weren't vague dreams. They were specific, actionable, and often already underway. A farmer showed me his app-based distribution system that connects directly to urban buyers. A small manufacturer showed me how she's exporting to Japan using e-commerce platforms. A young graduate showed me her portfolio of freelance work for American and European clients. The future isn't coming to the Philippines. It's already here. It's just not evenly distributed yet. And that's what the global investors see. They're not betting on potential. They're betting on momentum that's already building. They're positioning themselves ahead of the wave, not hoping for the wave to arrive. Here's what this means for you. Whether you're an investor, an entrepreneur, a student planning your career, or just someone trying to understand where the world is heading, the Philippines story matters. Because it's a template for how countries can leapfrog development stages, how they can turn demographic dividends into economic transformation, how they can navigate great power competition while building prosperity. I came to the Philippines skeptical, armed with all the usual concerns about emerging markets. I'm leaving convinced that something genuinely extraordinary is happening here. Not guaranteed, not risk-free, but real, tangible, and accelerating. The billionaires and hedge fund managers aren't moving to Manila for the weather. They're moving because they see what's coming, and they want to be positioned before everyone else figures it out. So the question isn't whether the Philippines will transform over the next decade. The question is whether you'll recognize it before it becomes obvious to everyone else. Because by the time it's obvious, the biggest opportunities will already be gone. That's the real reason global investors are quietly pouring billions into the Philippines. They're not making noise about it because they don't want competition. They want to accumulate positions while prices are still reasonable, while opportunities are still abundant, while the narrative hasn't yet caught up to reality. But now you know, and what you do with that knowledge is up to you.